G'day guys, welcome to me on my dinner break at work, just eating some vegetable soup, and I just wanted to discuss a few things with you. So one thing is something I saw recently. So I'm a night shift worker, and sometimes I go out to buy stuff from a local convenience store just down the road. So the other night, I'd had my soup, but I still felt a bit hungry. So I decided to duck out to the convenience store just down the road to get like a chicken sandwich, a chicken wrap, or something like that. Anyhow, along the road to the convenience store, on the opposite side of the street, there's like verandas, shop fronts with they're large buildings, they're tall multi-story buildings, but they have like verandas, I suppose, over them, with platforms, large entranceways to these buildings. And sometimes you get people who are like homeless people, basically, and they will sleep rough in these veranda areas outside buildings of a night time, late at night, early hours of the morning. Anyhow, as I was walking past, on the way to the convenience store, this guy came past me wearing a dark hoodie and sort of walked past and onto one of those verandas. And then after I came out of the convenience store with my chicken wrapper sandwiches, and walked past that shop front, there was a person lying on the elevated platform area. They were red-faced, or their face was red. They had a sleeping bag, but it was kind of wrapped around their ankles, basically, just the lower part of their feet, their ankles. Their back was arched off the ground, and they were kind of writhing about. And I could distinctly hear quite a loud sound of hissing like the sound of an angry snake, like a snake hissing. I'm not going to do the sound. You know what an angry snake hissing sounds like. Or maybe it will, like that kind of thing. Couldn't help myself. So, but like, it wasn't as though the guy lying on the ground was making that noise deliberately. He wasn't hissing at me, like, because he was lying there kind of with his back on the ground, his back arched, and as I said, a sleeping bag sort of around the lower part of his ankles. He's kind of writhing on the ground and looked like, you can imagine a snake kind of uncoiling out of its skin, like shedding a layer of skin. That's what it reminded me of, a snake shedding its skin. And this hissing noise, like this aggressive hissing noise, as I say, not coming out of his mouth, not being deliberately made, but emanating from his presence, from his location. And there wasn't a snake anywhere in that veranda area. There was no snake there. There wasn't, as one of my colleagues suggested, a snake in his sleeping bag. No way. He would have been bitten by the damn thing. And most of the sleeping bag wasn't on the guy. It was just down the lower part of his ankles. So it wasn't a snake in his sleeping bag. There wasn't one in that area. The sound was coming from him. And it was a snake sound, hissing, angry snake sound. Okay, well, so just being scientific about it, or, methodical about it, and saying, well, how can we rule out different possibilities? One of my colleagues said mental illness. Well, I know about mental illness. I studied abnormal and counselling psychology at university, so I know the kinds of mental illnesses that are out there and how you can tell what they are. Or whether it's some sort of result of taking drugs or whatever. Well, it didn't look like a mental illness, that I could think of, that would explain that kind of behaviour. Certainly wouldn't explain. I mean, homelessness kind of explains the fact that the guy was lying there early hours in the morning with a sleeping bag. That's obvious, circumstantial. The red-faced appearance, well, I suppose if you drink heavily, you can get a flushed, red-faced appearance. Perhaps that happens if you take certain kinds of drugs. I'm not sure about that. But the unmistakable hissing sound of a snake, that I think is the most inexplicable part of it. I mean, as I said, I could not see a snake anywhere. It wasn't in his sleeping bag that I could see. It's definitely emanating from him, or his person, or his location. Definitely sounded like a snake. So I wasn't taking any drugs, no alcohol, because I was working night shift. No drugs, no alcohol. Might have had a Red Bull or something before I started work, a bit of caffeine. I'm not suffering from any mental health symptoms. If you like hallucinate, so if you have visual or auditory hallucinations, a schizophrenic will have those all of the time. They don't just randomly have random hallucinations. They won't randomly have an auditory hallucination 1 minute and then not the next. They're constantly experiencing hallucinations, auditory, visual. So it's not mental illness. Not my mental illness. Not this guy's mental illness. He couldn't project it like a puppet or something. A ventriloquist will possible, but what would be the point of that? Why would somebody try and project this god-awful sound of a snake hissing while they're writhing on the ground? They weren't looking at me. They didn't look at me. No visual eye contact. In a very unusual lying on their back position. So I'm not sure they were even aware of my presence. To be directing that at me in any way, or even to be trying to fake it. What for? Early hours of the morning, why would you do that? Why would you be practicing your snake hissing sound act, ventriloquist act, without even a snake dummy? To be the thing that's making the sound. Like, it doesn't make sense in that sense either. So, well, you can pretty much rule out any normal explanation. And using, the sort of Arthur Conan Doyle, Sherlock Holmes approach to it, ruling out the obvious, no matter what remains, no matter how unlikely, is the truth. So I'm suggesting this person was either highly influenced by or under the control, possession of, I would say, a satanic spirit. Why would I say satanic and not demonic? Because the Bible says that Satan is a serpent. He appears as a snake in the garden, or an ancient dragon. So a dragon, a serpent. So it makes sense that he would make snake-like sounds rather than some other demon. So to me it's more closely aligned with a satanic type of influence or possession. So there was another documented case, I forget what it was called now, of some bizarre creature that people witnessed somewhere in England, I think it might have been, and they actually have a shop with these figurines of it, the something monster, and whatever. It's got a candle-shaped head, Like the head of it was candle shaped, it had glowing red eyes, it was elevated, it was hovering. This is what the witnesses say they saw, hovering off the ground. And there was a distinctive snake hissing sound associated with that monster. So, to me, the imagery of that monster that they described as having appeared after they saw something like a meteorite flash through the sky, and then went to the area where they thought they'd seen the meteorite come down, and then encountered this creature that, as I say, was floating off the ground on some sort of mechanical apparatus, had like a hooded candle-shaped thing over its head with the glowing eyes and the hissing snake sound, and it was so scary that they just ran away from it. So that particular monster, the imagery of it, very what I would call Luciferian. And why would I say that? Well, because Lucifer is described in the Bible as the angel of light. Angel of light. It makes sense that he would manifest like a candle flame, a candle light. It's kind of imagery, but it's Luciferian imagery, candle-headed creature. It makes sounds like a hissing snake. So it reminded me a bit of that, this person that I saw. So what I'm saying is that I believe what I witnessed was supernatural, spiritual in nature, somebody highly influenced by or under the possession of a satanic spirit. And that this is something we should be aware of, that the spiritual battle in the world is real. It's very real. And it's very dangerous if you're not prepared for it. So I would say to you, don't underestimate the enemy. Don't underestimate evil and its ability to do things. So if you have an objective in your life, whether it's a personal relational objective, it could be a personal financial objective, it could be a personal spiritual objective, a work-related objective, whatever it is, demonic forces, satanic forces, spiritual forces can be aware of your intentions and your objectives and actively work against you to thwart you, to frustrate and thwart you. So you could be ambling through life thinking, things happen randomly, or it's, power and effort through the physical, scientifically observable world, or how to win friends and influence people, psychology stuff. Whether this sort of stuff is enough in a world, as I say, that is being influenced and controlled by supernatural, demonic and satanic powers and principalities that are actively working against us. So do not take it lightly. Do not underestimate the enemy. So what does this mean for the Christian? You're going to have to be actively praying against these forces that are trying to thwart you. So as I say, if you've got an objective, whatever it is, if it's in line with God's will, pray about it and pray that it will not be thwarted, that you'll be protected, that you'll be assisted to achieve this objective, and that it will not be thwarted by the enemy. So you're going to have to go to spiritual warfare against evil. Don't just consider it taken for granted that God's just going to know what you want without you asking Him and saying, look, this is my intention, this is my objective, pray that I'll be protected from this spiritual attack or from spiritual forces that would attempt to thwart me in my objective, my goal. Actively go into battle to defeat the enemy that's going to try and thwart you. So that's one piece of advice. I can definitely give you. Just let me pause there for a second. Okay, back again. So the other one I wanted to share with you, which was given to me in a dream vision, was that relationships are not for free. Okay, any kind of relationship, it's not for free. A relationship with God, not for free. So the Bible says, count the cost. Count the cost of being in a relationship with God. So if you want to be in a relationship with God, which is essential if you want to be saved, partake of the saving work of Christ, then you're going to have to enter a relationship with God, and it's going to cost you. It will cost you suffering, persecution. Okay, so count the cost of it. Relationships are not for free. All right. So if you have pets, it's going to cost you. You know, you got to pay for their food. You got to pay for their flea treatment, their worm treatment, vet bills, all this sort of stuff. If you don't do these things for your pets, they're going to run away. Or going to go somewhere else. You know, seek another owner. It's not for free. A pet is not for free. So how much more so relationships with people? It's a sad. It seems like a sad reality, but it is just a reality. So if you're serious about having a relationship with somebody, then it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you time. It's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you effort. You're going to have to invest all of that into a relationship. There's no need to be cynical or disappointed or bitter about that. It's just a simple fact of life. This is something God has revealed to me. Relationships cost us. Okay, so there you are. God bless, and I'll talk to you guys later.